All right, today we're correcting our benchmark. Remember that this is going in as your semester test, and it's, what did we say, 14% of your total average for the semester. So you need to make sure that you're correcting and that you're writing it down. So I gave you a hard copy that looks like this. I also gave you a sheet that tells you which ones you missed. You have to correct the ones that you missed. Make sense? Yes? Okay, so number 1 says, what is the slope? And you guys remember that in y equals mx plus b, the m is the slope. So was this in mx plus b form? Yes, so what was the slope? 12. Okay, if I write it down, you have to write it down if you missed it. Okay, now if you didn't get it right if you got it right because you guessed, go ahead and correct it as well, just so that you're making sure you're good. Okay? You'll know. Number 2, what was the clue word? Okay, and domain has to do with the x's. So I highlighted the x-axis, and then I'm going to draw a line down right here. What is the lowest x? 0. What is the highest x? 230. So x went from 0 to 230. I could have marked off the y's right away because that is range. Okay, turn the page. I told you guys that you could do the equations in your calculator, yes? Okay, I'm going to go do it by hand just to make sure we're all good. What was the first thing I would have to do it by hand? Starts with the D. Distributive property. So the first thing you would have done is 1.25 times 4, which is 5x. What should I have done right here? Keep change. So I have a plus, and 1.25 times negative 10 is negative 12.5. Okay, I would get rid of this by adding. So I have 5x equals, what is that, 20? Divide by 5, and you get 4. Okay, same thing with the next one. Could you have done this in your calculator? Yes, go to y equals, and then second trace, option 5, enter. So nobody should have missed these. I'm going to go do it by hand. When there is a negative on the outside of the parentheses, what should I do? Distribute it to everything on the inside. So it's really keep change through the whole thing. So I have negative 6m plus negative 8 equals, and then 4 times 17, which is 68, plus negative 4m. Okay, I got to put all the variables to one side, so I should get rid of this by plussing 4m. So I have negative 2m minus 8 equals 68, and then I'm going to plus 8. So I have negative 2m equals 76, and then divide by negative 2, which is negative 38. Does everybody remember how to do these in their calculator? Because I see a lot of us writing like we missed them, but we should not miss them because the calculator should do them. Do y'all remember how to do them in the calculator? So if yours was giving you an error, your windows were not set correctly. So you need to know that for your EOC. When you go to window, like right now, if mine was set like this, it would probably give me an error because I'm telling the calculator I only want to see from negative 10 to positive 10, but look what my answer is. It's not going to show up on the screen because it's too far to the left. Does that make sense? So anytime you're solving an equation in your calculator, you can go set your windows to really big numbers. For example, you could do negative 500 positive 500. And if you do that, when you hit graph, it's like really zoomed out on the x-axis, and I have an exponential equation in, so it looks like that. Okay, so y'all try that real quick. So you go to y equals, you would put in negative, open parentheses, 6x plus 8, close parentheses. And when you type it in, you're going to type it in the original way, just how you saw it. Okay? Tab down. 4, open parentheses, 17 minus x. Second trace, option 5. Enter, enter, enter. Did it give you the answer now? Okay, so when it does that, your windows are not set correctly. Does everybody understand that? All right, the next question, what was the clue word? What does rate of change really mean? Slope. How many ways have I taught you to do this? 3. One would be rise over run. What's another way? Slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What's the last way I taught y'all? Stat. Any 3 of these ways would have given you the correct answer. The one that's the most risky is this one. The reason that this one is risky is because if you forget your negative sign because it's going down, then you miss the whole problem. So I highly recommend one of these ways. Okay, if you did slope formula, this is x1, y1, x2, y2. So it would be 2 minus 3.6 over 5 minus negative 3. You would go to your calculator, type that all in. And you get negative 0.2. You also could have gone to stat and put in this for L1, negative 3 and positive 5, and then that for L2, and then gone to stat calc, option 4. Are we good? All right, moving on. Number 6, what was the clue word? Rate of change. What does rate of change really mean? How many different ways could you find slope of this table? Stat. What else? Slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Which way did y'all choose? Stat. Okay, so I go to stat, edit, delete whatever's there. Okay, I'm going to enter in negative 20, negative 12, negative 6, and negative 2. Okay, now I go to stat, and I want it to calculate the answer. It's linear, so I pick 4, and my slope is right there, negative 4.5. But none of my answers look like that. Then do what? Change this to a fraction or change those to decimals. It's that simple. So negative 4.5. How do I do that in my calculator? Math, fraction, enter. And there's my answer. Negative 9/2. Okay, same thing with the next one. It asks for the rate of change. And what does rate of change really mean? Slope. Okay, so this would be my L1 in stat. So I have 1, 3, stat calc, option 4, and my slope is 7. Okay, this one, it says, what is the equation? Again, these are linear because they are in what form? And it even told you it's in slope-intercept form, so you knew that it was linear. Now, could you have used slope formula to find the slope? Yes, but would it find the y-intercept? No. So what was the best way to do this one? Stat. Remember that when you do stat, is everybody paying attention? The x's go in as your L1, so it's -4 and 12. And these y's go in as your L2, so 2 and 6. Stat calc. And the equation is y equals 0.25x plus 3. See, it says this is your slope, this is your y-intercept. Number 9, which graph best represents this equation? So what did you have to do before you even tried to see which graph it was? I've got to get y by itself by dividing by -5. So I have y equals, negative divided by a negative is a, so positive 6/5 x, and a positive divided by a negative is a. All right, could I have used my y equals button? Yes or no? Could I have used that this is the y-intercept and this is the slope? So the y-intercept is at -3. This one does not have a y-intercept of -3. This one did, so I left it alone. This one did, so I left it alone, and this one did not. The next thing I looked at is the slope positive or negative? So it has to be B or C. The slope is positive, meaning the line is going up from left to right with a rise of 6 and a run of 5. Number 10 asked for the, and what did I teach y'all a 0 is? You have a question? Okay, hold on. Okay, what is a 0? An x intercept. All right, so tell me what you would have to do on this problem to find it. I had to graph it. It told me it had a point at 1, -9. So should I go put that point? So here's 1, -9. Well, that's just one dot. That's not going to help me. So now it tells me it has a slope of what? -3 over 1. So I could rise down 3 and write 1, but I'm out of room on my graph. Yes? So could I switch this to 3 over -1 and go up 3, left 1. 1, 2, 3, left 1. Do I see an x-intercept yet? No. What is this called? What is this called? A y-intercept. And I'm looking for an x. Did y'all notice that answer is there? Yes. All right. So up 3, left 1, up 3, left 1. Did I hit an x-intercept? Yes. What is the answer? -2. All you had to do was graph it. Now, I know that was hard in DMAC, but on the real STAR test, you'll have little things, tools at the top where you can draw, make lines, and we're working on fixing it for the next benchmark. Okay? All right, next question. It says the graph of a linear function, what does linear mean? Straight line, passes through these 2 points. So what should I go do? Make a graph. I need to go graph these. Here's negative 7, 0. Here's 1, 8. It wants to know which of the following statements is true. So you have to go through each statement to see if it's true. It says the slope of the graph is negative 4/3. Well, guys, if I was to connect these dots with a straight line, what kind of slope is that? So is A correct? No. B says the graph of K will pass through negative 1, negative 8. Well, go look at that. Is it going to pass through that? No. C says the 0 is positive 7. That's right here. No. And D says the x-intercept of the graph is negative 7. Yes. That was too easy. Number 12. A baker determined that the annual profit in dollars from selling pies using this equation, where n is the number of pies sold. What is the annual profit if the baker sells 400 pies? So what should I have done? Plug in 400 for just that end? Both ends. Now, could I have used my y equals button? Yeah, but I would have had to scroll down all the way to 400, so I didn't want to do that. So I simply plugged in 52 times 400 minus 0.05 times 400 squared. And I go to my calculator and I type that in. And the answer is 12,800. So far, guys, nobody should miss it. But any questions? They're so easy. Number 13, which answer choice best describes the domain and range? So I'm going to start with domain, which is the x-axis. What is the lowest point on the x-axis? On the x-axis, 0. What is the highest point? So the domain is from 0 to 50. So was A correct for domain? No. Was B correct for domain? Not at all. Was D correct for domain? No. So the answer had to be C. Number 14. A grill at a barbecue restaurant will be used to cook sausage links that are 2 pounds each and brisket that are 6 pounds each. No more than. What does no more than mean? Less than or equal to 120. No more than 120 pounds of sausage links and brisket will be cooked on the grill. So real quick, I marked off F because it wasn't right at all. And I marked off H because it wasn't right. And I marked off J. The only answer choice with the correct inequality sign was G. So I didn't even have to do anything else. Number 15. Which graph best represents the solution where y is greater? What does it mean to be greater? You will shade above. What else does it mean? The line will be solid or dashed. So I'm going to mark off A and B right away. And which one out of C and D was shaded above? D. And y'all know on your test it was easier to see it, right? Number 16. Now we're getting to where it became a little more challenging because we actually had not had full lessons on this, right? Okay, I think it was 16. Was it 16 that gave y'all issues? Okay. The reason was none of them matched perfectly, right? Okay, so this one was not super fair. So, what I'm going to tell you is that it said the word quadratic. In that case, use the stat button with the quadratic option, and you have to put all of the table in, and it will give you the answer. Okay, so let's go through, let's do it together. So everybody open your calculator and go to stat. Delete whatever's there. Now, when we're talking about quadratics and stuff, you have to put in the entire table. So literally every single data entry. Make sure your data is put in correctly. Go to Stat Calc. But this time, instead of choosing linear, what would we choose? Quadratic, which is option 5. You're going to hit enter until you get the answer. And that's your answer. So, and do you see that it gives you the equation up here? It says ax squared plus bx plus c, and it says a is 0.07. You'll see what I'm saying? So the correct answer was G, right? It was G. And we have not fully learned that, so don't be frustrated if you miss that. I mean, it is what it is. All right, the next one, you simply would use your y equals button to see which one of those was correct. So you go to y equals, clear everything out, and type in choice A. 6, open parentheses, 1/3, close, tab out, close parentheses to the x power. I like to use my table, and like right here I would say, okay, there's going to be a point at 0.6, and so I go check that, and that was correct. There's also going to be a point at 1.2, and that was correct. And then I went over here and said there was a point at -1.18, and that was correct. The correct answer was A. So I just check the points on the graph and match it with the table. Number 18, same thing. I would want you to go put that in your y equals button. And so negative x squared plus 6x minus 1. If you hit graph, it'll show you. But why can't I see it? Good. My window. So if I want to go reset it to -10 and +10, see how now I can see which way the graph is going. So it's like a sad face. It's going down, right? So what could I mark off right away? G and H. And then the next thing I would do is just check the points. So I go to the table. When x is 0, y is -1. So F looked good and J did not, right? So there you go. F was the answer. Number 19, who remembers what I told y'all on review day? I said this number right here is the what? Yes, y'all remember that or no? This number is the slope. So what I did is I said, well, okay, this slope is positive. Well, that didn't let me mark any out, did it? What else could I do? Could I go see if the slope is 5 over 7 or 7 over 5? Okay, so I needed to find 2 points. And I saw one here, and there was one like right down here. Yes? So my rise was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my run was 7. So I could mark off which 2 answer choices right away, A and B. Now to find the right answer choice, I had to rearrange these 2 equations to y equals mx plus b. Before I can move this, so I'm going to come over here and do C. Before I can move the plus 2, what do I have to do? Distributive property. So 5/7 times x plus 5/7 times 7, which is just 5. Y'all should know that. Okay, now I'm going to subtract the 2. So y equals 5/7 x plus 3. Okay, well look at your graph. This is your what? What is this right here? That's the starting point, the y-intercept. Was the y-intercept at positive 3? No, so that answer couldn't be it, so it had to be D. All right, the next one. What form are these equations in? They're in mx plus b. What does that mean? They are linear. So could I use stat and then the linear option? Yes. So I'm going to go to stat, edit. Okay, so 1, 3, 6, and 7. 21, 15, 6, and 3. Stat, calc. I'm going to choose option 4 for linear. And there's my equation, negative 3x plus 24. Easy? All right, the next question. I feel like a lot of you missed this because you forgot what a y-intercept is. A y-intercept is this, yes? What will the value of x be for a y-intercept? So you're asking yourself, what is y when x is 0? Could you go plug in 0 for x? Could you go to y equals and look for it on the table? That's what I did. I went to y equals. I typed that equation in, 29 open parentheses, 5.2 close parentheses to the x power. And I went to the table and I said, what is y when x is 0? Well, it's 29. So my y-intercept was 29. Okay, number 22. All you had to do was type it in your calculator to y equals. If you hit graph, it'll kind of show you what it should look like. And it's going to be in quadrant 1 coming down. So I know that F was out and I know H was out. Just by looking at the picture. Y'all see that? Now I go to the table and I'm going to check coordinates. It should have a dot at 0, 10. This one kind of did, so I'm not sure yet. It's going to have a dot at, let's see what else I could check. Well, 1, 8.5. That one looks good. This one doesn't, because 1 is right here, and that means it would have a dot right there. So the answer was G. The next one, could I do the same thing? Yes, y equals. Now, do y'all remember what I told y'all about this last number? What did I tell y'all that last number was on a quadratic? It's the y-intercept. If you didn't know that, it wouldn't matter. So you would just use your y. But I know this is the y-intercept right here, so I knew that A and B were out. I didn't even have to check them. Because what is the y-intercept right here? Yeah, so these were 0 because it didn't have a number there. So I went straight to C and typed it in. And I said there's a point at 0, 0. There's a point at 1, negative 5. There's a point at 3, negative 9. So that was the answer. It was good. Number 24. Now, on this one, could you type those in y equals and go check them? Okay, but since it said exponential, what could I use? I could use stat and choose the option for exponential. So, just to show y'all, I'll delete those. Go to Stat, Calc, and you have to tab down for exponential. It's right there. It's option 0. And there's your equation. Oh, what did I do? There we go. So it's y equals 18 times 1.2 to the x power. So I just had to figure out which one of those was 1.2, which couldn't be 5, 6 because that's part of a whole and that's more than a whole. Could you have also used your y equals button and checked your tables? Yes. Number 25, getting back to stuff we know well. Domain. What is the domain? So I highlight the x-axis and I say, what is the lowest point on the x-axis? Okay, was there a highest point or did it keep going forever? So the domain is x is greater than or equal to -2. You could have marked off B and D right away because they were talking about the range. Number 26, what was the clue word? For functions, what do we only look at? And they cannot repeat. So F was out because -13 repeated. G was out because -1 repeated. H, 1, 3, 7, 12 was the answer because nothing repeated. Okay, last question. Everybody sitting up paying attention. What was the clue word on 27? And varies directly means proportional. And we can make a, what were we comparing? Centimeters to seconds. So I have 264 centimeters in 11 seconds. What was the distance? So that's what is the centimeters when it's, excuse me. No, that's your total distance. 408. Sorry. What's the time? So you cross, multiply, then divide. 11 times 408 divided by 264 is 17 seconds. So the answer was B. Does anybody have any questions about anything I didn't go over? Yes or no? All right.